Welcome everyone to the Monday Night Live Q&A. Erin Snow is back with us tonight. It's been a while, so
Yes, it has.
so glad to have you back. And so we're waiting for questions. Anything that's been happening or you've been seeing recently that we can chat about for a few minutes.
I just presented, let's see, on
Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, what day is it,
I
Tammy?
know.
At the mental health, Orange County Mental Health Conference called Meeting of the Minds out in Orange County. And it was on sexualized drug use and how basically the chemsex movement is not just in the gay community, that it is
Correct.
dangerous and growing into all kinds of other demographics and populations. And let me tell you, it was so cool. It was a really large group, but I always want to make it interactive. I'm not the type that's like, save your questions for the end. I'm like, if you have a burning question, raise your hand, let's talk it out now. And so many really amazing questions, and people just starting to see that a lot of these people have wound up in their treatment centers, in their therapy offices, and they've dealt with the substance use, but they have not dealt with or even looked at or assessed for, the other side, which is we see those clients time and time again. They come in and they've been to treatment 3 or 4 times. They've been to substance use treatment, but nobody asked about, the fact that cocaine is always wrapped up in seeing an escort, or I always have to drink before I am disinhibited enough to be sexual. And then it kicks off this cycle. And so I think it was just a really interesting experience because I was one of those providers before being really educated in this field. I ran addiction treatment centers, and looking back, I'm like, wow, we missed so much because we're not trained in this area. In grad school, this is why we tell these clients to get CSATs, right? Is because in grad school, I think we had one class on like human sexuality, but compulsive sex was never once discussed, not trained on. So unless you really do go and get additional training, you're not going to just learn this by having a therapy, degree. So
And to your point, so first of all, I've got Dr. David's book, Sex Under
yay.
the Influence. So he's a contributor. He does webinars on alternating months. He does the even months. So he was on earlier this month on the second week of the month. But he also consults for seeking integrity. So when there are clients that have the co-occurring, and the book Sex Under the Influence, he wrote Less Men and Meth, but I kept bugging him too. I was like, it's everybody, male, female, doesn't matter. But it's cannabis. We talk often about cannabis, and I just
Yeah.
learned about hypermesis, whatever. I can't even say it. I've got a note on it, but I had to look it up.
Hyperemesis.
Thank you. I knew I was slaughtering the word, but I was like, I didn't even know about that, and like these really major symptoms, and people are having physical and surgeries and stuff like that when they're being misdiagnosed by doctors. So I mean, there's so much education to do. So I appreciate that you are out there, telling people about it, and every therapist that learns about it and is willing to go, oh
Yeah.
wait, I should ask more.
Yeah.
It like there's plenty of business for everybody. It really is.
Yes.
Let's get the clients the right treatment. So
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a ton of people that came up afterwards and were asking questions, um and connecting with them and following up with them afterwards and providing our resources. And people are just shocked to know that not only do we have resources, but that a lot of our resources are really free or low cost. So I just think it made me so proud to be a part of our organization because there's something for everybody, for professionals, for addicts, betrayed partners. Yeah, it's a special place.
well, it is, and I'll put a link for both the free resources. You're on a webinar if you're joining live. You're watching it on the previously recorded if you're watching it later. But we've got podcasts, and those are more listening to. But you can interact on drop-in groups. You can interact on a work group that's a low cost but highly effective. Many good therapists are recommending the work groups for their clients because they get more traction. All of this is get more traction, get more information, get more support so that you can move forward and not, keep, swinging back to the problematic behaviors. It's challenging. Okay, we've got questions. So Thank you for all that information. So
Sure.
betrayed partner here, 23 years, several major D-days with constant porn addiction. So living hell every day. Last major D-day was 9 months ago. I am attending Seeking Integrity groups. Thank you. And I have a betrayal trauma coach and do EMDR. I still have so much hurt and pain inside. Any advice? I am tired of feeling like this. I want to live again and be happy.
Hmm. First of all, I just have so much empathy, and I know Tammy does too. This is a rocky journey. Um, it's a traumatic journey. It's a journey of periods of hope and periods of being knocked down again. And like you said, 23 years and another D-Day 9 months ago. And I'm so glad you're taking advantage of some of our resources, some of our groups, and also, seeing a trauma coach and doing EMDR. That's all really incredible. And it takes time. It takes time. And I think the biggest thing for me, and that we've talked about with a lot of our betrayed partners, is that there's the journey as a couple, and then there's the journey that you're on in your own healing path. And finding safety is going to be your quickest way back to joy, meaning that when I can't control what my partner does, what the addict does, I can wish and hope and throw resources out there, and I hope that they take, the life raft and they do the work, but I don't have control over that. And so oftentimes it is, what do I need to do to heal from this car accident nightmare, got hit by a train, and I have all these injuries, and I didn't cause this, and I didn't create this, and I'm just a bystander of my partner trying to heal his own thing. And so you are doing some of that work. My big thing would be that, yes, excavating the trauma is important at some point in the journey. There also is the part that I always say comes even before that, but all throughout that, of like, what do I need to do to feel safe in the moment? Even in the moment where things blow up, what do I need to do to be my own anchor? That I can have my own back, that I can, when pain comes, when challenges come, I can feel that, but I have support around me. I know how to lean on a community and you have to kind of figure out what are those self-regulation tools that work for you. I know for me, I remember that spin, that being in the tornado and feeling like I don't know what is up or down, and my brain wants to hyper fixate on what he's doing because it's scanning for safety. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? If I know more, then I'm not going to have to go through this again. And the truth is, I never had control over it in the beginning. So I found some things that were really helpful for me on a daily basis. Exercise was one of those. I emotionally process through movement. So moving my body helped to move the trauma and the stuck it helped me to release emotion. And I would walk to like loud music that helped me to just move things. Also, having a community I could be honest with. So I'm so glad you're in some of our groups. Be evaluating, do I have someone to call when I'm struggling? Do I have someone on a level where I can openly share and that person's not judgmental of me? And then I listened to Sarah Blondin. She does meditation tracks. And for whatever reason, her voice, the things she said, anchored me to myself and allowed me to say, hey, this is painful. And I want to be the woman that I choose to be today. I want to show up as the mother that I want to be. I want to show up as the boss that I choose to be. I want to show up as I want to feel joy. I don't want this one thing to rob all the joy that I have left in my life. I want to choose joy. And I know that that's so hard when the thing right in front of your face is painful. So I would just say that even in working with your coach, figuring out what are the tools that I can do on a daily basis that bring me back into my body, back into my power, and back into my sense of joy. If that's journaling, if that's hot and cold, if that is exercise, if that is community. I don't know what that is going to be for you, but I'll tell you, it's what saved me in the process. And I have so much empathy, and I'm so inspired by the fact that you want to live again and you want to be happy again. And that is out there for you. And as it pertains to the addict, he's going to do what he's going to do. And it may be to the point where you say, I actually need space from this in order to access my own joy, safety, and happiness. So I don't know what his journey looks like, but I know that at some point you may want to say, I need to see these things to even feel baseline happy and safe in this relationship, or I need to take space so that I can begin to regulate and feel like I have a path forward again.
Yeah, so much good. And I put our work groups, the link is in the chat. I put the Empowered Women's Retreat in the chat. That may be a healing option for you too. And I was thinking, like Erin was talking about, you can't make that unhappen. Dr. Eddie did a webinar and talked about Dr. Gabor Mate. The gist of it is whatever happened, you can't make unhappen. But you replaying that, is the trauma. I had a friend, and this is anecdotal, but I had a friend who said, I had to quit doing the trauma work because all I was doing is re-experiencing the trauma. You have a coach. A coach's job would be to help you find what you need to do on a daily basis, like find those activities, and help you. And there are lots of resources that have, been shared in these webinars and others, that talk about, what do you need to do to regulate. And in fact, I made up a whole list of things that I was sharing. You can email me. I will copy and paste it and share it with you. TAMI at Seeking Integrity, because, I made up a list of things to try for a partner. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to share this when people ask. But it's find what works for you. Debbie McCrae talks often about having an emergency kit, and I love that. Like you have like in your car, you have your little emergency kit in case there's a medical emergency. Well, what is your emotional emergency kit? Like if I'm triggered, if I'm feeling dysregulated, like how horrible that you feel like you're living, hell every day, but you're looking for something different. So good. What do you need in your emergency kit that will give you, even just a little reprieve, 20 minutes to get back in your executive thinking brain? One of the things is gratitude. Like I know it's hard to, but I bet there's something that you can be grateful for, even when things are horrible, and your brain cannot be grateful and be in living hell at the same time. It's impossible. So that's a momentary respite if you're thinking, I'm grateful for the sunshine, whatever it is, but like I'm sorry that you're on this journey, and I'm grateful for you're here and working towards healing for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. I am the betrayed. I am 9 months out. My husband is working on his third step. He has a CSAT, goes to 4 meetings a week, listens to podcasts, and does the Inner Child Workbook and Helping Couples Heal Workbook, among others. I hear people talk about good recovery. What is that exactly? I have heard some say that certain characteristics, such as arrogance, indicate that the essay is not in good recovery. But doesn't that take time to go away? So thank you for this question. We did a webinar on what real recovery is. I'll find the link for you, but we just did that one. I get lost. I think that was March of this year. I think we did what is real recovery, and we unpacked a whole bunch of things that you can look. But you're 9 months out, and recovery takes 2 to 5 years. So it sounds like he's doing lots of good things, but I'm not reading what you're doing for support for you. I'm glad you're here, but what else are you doing for you to help you with the regulation and things? So I'm going to go find that link. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and I think it's probably because we say good recovery, right? And from the looks of it, your husband's doing a lot of those elements. We would recommend obviously therapy with a CSAT. We recommend 12-step meetings. We recommend definitely, you can do reading and podcasts. I find that some people can get really hooked on the like reading and knowledge, and they're checking the boxes, but it's not bringing them to a different level. So I think therapy, meetings, community, and group for addicts is so critical, because the goal would be for them to move that I would say accountability partner away from their partner being their moral compass into a group of men that are now holding them accountable, right? That is the goal. And I see that is where a lot of the energy begins to shift. And you're absolutely right. Characteristics, right? Arrogance, I'm still irritable, or I'm moody, or I still get defensive sometimes, or I even still lie sometimes. You're absolutely right. Just because somebody is in recovery does not mean that all their character traits are going to immediately go away, and they're going to be, those things do take time. And in fact, for some, there may be shades of that thing for a while, or forever. But in this case, yes, obviously you as a partner have the right to say, hey, that behavior doesn't make me feel safe right now, whether that's them being gaslighting, defensive, arrogant, and setting your own boundaries around that, or taking space when that behavior shows up. But the goal would be for them to be held accountable, in their groups and by their therapists of this thing that's showing up. We hear a lot of times partners say, well, they walk into their meetings and they put on their recovery face and they go, and which is why I think sometimes residential treatment is really amazing for those kind of longer term character type issues. We have a lot of men that come to treatment simply because they cannot figure out how to build intimacy, feel empathy, express empathy, be emotionally and intimately involved with their partner. And that's because in treatment, you're there with us 24/7. We're witnessing you in all your shades. You can't fake your way through it. Someone's going to see and call you on the incongruence, the inconsistencies, the performative nature of what you're doing, whatever it is. And so I think that, yeah, character defects, character traits, those things do take time. And I think as a couple, beginning to just bring that to one another when you see it, taking space, that you're going to get my connection when you show up in a way that's authentic and caring and at least conversational. You are going to lose connection with me when you're arrogant, defensive, and rude to me, that I'm going to be taking a step away from you when you're like that. But yeah, you're 9 months in. It's expected that there are all kinds of shades of this. I mean, again, narcissistic behavior is inherent in addiction. It has to be narcissistic. I think we throw around the word narcissist a lot these days. It's like a big hot button topic, but very few of those people are actually narcissistic personality disorder. Yes, addiction is inherently narcissistic and selfish and compartmentalized and lies, gaslights, all the things. That's how it protects itself and it maintains its ability to continue on. So give it time. I do see that he's doing some really good work. And as Tammy mentioned, please make sure you're getting a lot of good support for yourself, because it's an arduous journey. But it can be a really beautiful journey if you lean into, I told myself I could look back and this could be a really shitty time. Or I can look back and say, I leveraged that shitty time to dig as deep as I could to come out on the other end as something better than I was before. And that's the path that I chose, but yeah, support, therapy, community for you as well.
I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says, I leveraged the shitty time.
Yeah, I'll wear it.
I got fired from my job almost a month ago due to looking at inappropriate websites. I struggled with porn addiction with my wife for 20 plus years and switched over to remote work computer due to blocks at home. Been doing it for a long time, but was caught and fired immediately. I've been seeing a therapist, but not a specialized one, looking for guidance on next steps. Have looked into inpatient and intensive outpatient, but have not pulled the trigger. I've stopped since losing the job, but it has transitioned to sneaking food back behind my wife's back instead. I no longer have access to porn material.
Mm. Yeah.
And why would residential treatment be so beneficial for this person?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you've lost control, right? We see these types of consequences often. So whether they got fired from the job for inappropriate conduct with someone else, pushing those boundaries, or yes, they were watching, X-rated material on a work device or Wi-Fi network, or masturbating in their car and a coworker walked by. I mean, you're facing that point of consequences and you're noticing, I need next steps. And what I'm noticing is that I'm just transitioning this behavior into something else. Leverage this time. A lot of people get scared straight by consequences, and that lasts a short while. It's like, I am swearing this thing off. I am never going back. I am done. I'm not doing this anymore. But without real work, it creeps right back around the corner. And you're already noticing that in different types of behavior, right? Because this one behavior is off limits for the time being. So residential treatment, it is so hard to explain to someone even on the phone or that asks about it, because there is something that happens to you that is transformational. It is not about coming in and doing assignments and checking the boxes and saying, okay, I did that, I learned that. There is an emotional process that unfolds inside each and every man that is like, I am encountering my authentic self for the very first time, because those walls of denial and shame and gaslighting and all these well defended, the castle we build around us start to come down. And what's on the inside of that is a version of you that is integrated. It's not compartmentalized sides of myself. One side of me loves my family and the other side of me does everything I can to rip it down and destroy it. Right? It brings you in contact with that. It brings the sexual behavior into concrete structure and then into accountability with other men, who many of which choose to be lifelong contacts because they've gone through something where they felt seen and heard. There's support for your partner, who I imagine is reeling right now, because not just having to deal with this piece, but now like the financial security, the job is gone, like real consequences are being placed before you. This is absolutely the time to leverage getting away and doing this in a way that is a huge chunk. We always say it's like a giant shot in the arm. It's not something you can do 1 hour a week in a therapy office. It's not something you can even do going to a meeting every single day. This is 24/7 immersive treatment where we are looking at body, mind, soul, spirit, mental health, physical health, every level of who you are, and helping you to have a solid plan moving forward from a foundation of knowing who you are. Most of our clients at the root of it don't have a clue who they are anymore. They don't know how to get their needs met. They don't know how to advocate for what they need or want. They don't even know how to recognize emotions when they're showing up in their body right now. And that oftentimes started in childhood. So just being able to, I think, take a client through this transformational experience and teach them skills that they're starting with these other men in treatment, is true intimacy, authenticity, accountability that they get to take home to their families, is just the honor of a lifetime. It really is. When you see those light bulbs go on and that transition start to happen, it's truly amazing. So I would just say, given the consequences you're facing, I would strongly be considering it. And I understand not wanting to pull the trigger. It's scary. It's giving up control. It's admitting that this is as bad as maybe it really is. And I have no idea what to expect. So I hope I gave you just a taste of, it's hard to put into words, but it really is an incredible, incredible experience that can change the rest of your life.
And it is scary, because everything that you've been hanging on to is being asked to be set aside. So worth it. And I always say, if I could wave a magic wand and you could see how good recovery would be, you're jumping through hoops. You aren't doing this alone, though. Like, I hope you hear what a safe container there is to do this. And any modicum of control you think you have, and I'm not being snarky at all. You've lost a job. Like, what? I hear a life that is in crisis. So if there's a perception that you have control over things right now, the only thing you have control over is what your actions are going to be, and how you're going to choose to move forward. And it can be on the same path. Like, lots of people stay in active addiction forever, and continue to live that life, and just switch from thing to thing, and the porn or whatever else will come back, or some form of it, social media. Or you can go, I'm taking this moment and I'm going to choose, scared as I might be, to believe that there could be something different. And I'm here to tell you, we've got lots of people that have been through a program that, are different. I know, thousands of addicts who are in recovery, living a life that is something that I was meeting with a friend earlier today, and we were talking about, we can't believe that we have the life that we have because we are addicts. We should not be able to live this life. And we do, and we're not making a mess of our lives on a daily basis, so I hope you trust, just reach out, I promise this team, will hold you safely. I say safely cocoon because, there's safe space for you to be able to do that deeper work. And I don't think when you got done, you would regret it. I think you would be going, why didn't I do this sooner?
That's what most, it's like I go from the first call, the intake call, trying to explain this because I'm so passionate about it. And there's no way for them to fully grasp it until they're here. And by the
Hmm.
time they leave, I mean, I read our exit interviews sometimes, and somebody just said, like, it's the most meaningful thing I've done in my life aside from the birth of my child. Like
Hmm.
the most meaningful thing I have ever chosen to do. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Choose healing.
Mhm.
Okay, the next question. My wife has had mental health problems for a long time. Before she became religious and married me, she used sex to feel better. When we were dating, she seemed to be doing well, and I was drawn to her healthy habits. But now she's back to trying to feel better by watching TV, playing games online, and sleeping a lot. She only wants to be with me, but she wants me to be intimate with her mostly so she can feel better, not because she wants a deeper connection. I'm attracted to healthy habits and emotional connection, and I don't like the way she's living now. So she works, but when she gets home, she wants to numb out. She'll spend hours watching TV or playing games and then suddenly want to be intimate. She basically says it's my job to give her sex to make her feel better, even if I don't feel like it. When we are intimate, and I'm going to say when you have sex, it only helps me for a short time, and then she wants it again. I try to encourage her to do things she used to that helped her mood, but she ignores me and goes back to her distractions. Sometimes on weekends she'll want sex right away, and if I have plans or don't feel close to her, she gets upset and spends the whole weekend in bed. What role should sex play in managing mental health? That's a loaded question. Do I have the right to say no when I'm not attracted to her lifestyle? How can I best help my wife learn a healthy way to view sex in our relationship? Wow, that's a big, big set of questions.
Yeah, and it's great coming from a male
Yeah,
perspective because it's oftentimes we hear it here in a flip perspective.
yeah.
So a couple of things. One is no, there is no such thing as obligatory sex. You are in control of your body, right? And you are in a relationship with someone else. And that has to be a mutually consensual, agreed upon action that's taking both of your bodies into this consideration, right? The second thing is, can sex be a healthy part of a healthy mental health? Sure. I think absolutely. It can be a part of a healthy life, healthy relationship. It is not meant to, however, be the sole source of fixing your mental health. In fact, in this case, it's not working. A, she doesn't feel better for long, and B, you feel disconnected, resentful probably, and not really safe. Like I'm being used as some kind of tool to make you feel better, but I don't feel connected to you at all. So obviously there's something going on with her in terms of her mental health. I mean, it sounds like her central nervous system is a little out of whack, meaning she could be overwhelmed and stressed. She could be going through her own depression right now, which makes it very difficult to feel, we call it anhedonia, but just like not a whole interest in anything. And she might be going for the dopamine that sex provides to give her some relief from feeling just depressed. But at the end of the day, sex is not the answer to this, right? She does need to get some support and get some help. And you may have to get some support and some help to bring that alongside of her. I would ultimately be recommending maybe seeing someone together to hopefully get her to be interested in seeing someone herself and saying that I love you and I care about you. And of course, I want to have sex with you, but I'm really struggling with how I feel abandoned in all these other places in our relationship right now. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned for you that you come home from work and it's immediately numbing out. Just that you don't feel like you're you're happy and you're healthy and your normal self. And I'm concerned about that. And I want to support you to get some help. But my way of doing that is not to have sex with you at your beck and call as a way to be the solution, because it's not the solution here. So I would be coming from a place of love and concern, but also saying, as a boundary for me, I'm going to choose to have sex when I feel emotionally connected to you. That's when I feel the most, interested, aroused. I'm not going to force myself, to have sex with you when I really don't feel like it's what I want. That's a boundary for me. And I think we can get back to a healthier place, but we have to look at what both of us can and need to do to be in our best mental health space. What I know about, motivation is that nagging someone does not produce change in them. Setting a really good example and sticking to your own and saying, you're welcome to come into the sunny, shiny light over here that I'm walking in, and, is a much more likely way to motivate someone to do something. So if that's exercise, if that's seeing a therapist, if that's checking in on your physical health, if that, whatever it is, setting a really good example and saying, so that you're not just saying, you know what, I'm fine over here and you're the problem, and you need to really get up off the couch, and coming alongside somebody, because clearly what she's saying is that I'm not okay. This is something different from who she was before. But no, you do not have to. I say this to men, I say this to women, I don't care who you are. Your body is your choice. There is no, well, I have to because I'm married. No, you absolutely don't. If there are problems, you do not have to open up your body as a way to fix that if you don't want to.
So Matt Wheeler did a webinar on consent. It may be useful for you too. I put the link in the chat. Okay, are there any resources that talk about the development of sex addiction that aren't so extreme? Every book I read tells extreme stories of people who were clearly and obviously abused in some form or another. I can't ever find explanations that are more subtle. My essay partner has no clear trauma, had a basically good childhood with good enough parenting, and it's hard to find stories that speak to that. I also have a hard time finding examples of betrayed partners that I can relate to. I haven't been an enabler or co-addict the way that so often described, just looking for stories and dynamics that aren't so black and white. Thank you for asking this question.
Yes. So I'll address the part about kind of the etiology of addiction and development. But I want to first say, we don't use those words ever. We don't use the word co-addict. We don't use the word enabler when talking about betrayed partners. And I am so sorry you've had that experience. We like to talk about betrayal trauma in terms of a prodependent lens, which is that you did not cause this, you did not create this. And in a crisis right now, coming to you and saying, well, what is your part here? What part of you called this into your existence? Was your father this way? That is absolutely re-traumatizing and beyond, I think, unethical, right? You are in pain, you are going through hell, and you are traumatized. And I'm saying, well, what could be wrong with you? How did you? And as a betrayed partner, I so appreciated the way that our platform holds partners. There is a time and a place down the line, potentially, right, for all of us to take a look at our own selves. But in this crisis and in the lens of betrayal trauma is not the place and is not the time. So we will never call you a co-addict. Any one of our books on our platform, you can go to the books under resources, will all be from a prodependent lens, or at a minimum will hold up the betrayed partner in a regard that is healthy for healing. Okay. So I just want to say that, because that is not okay. And then, yeah, in terms of, so what I can say about sort of the development of sex addiction, absolutely, there are studies and there's research that shows some different markers. From my own experience working in treatment and treating hundreds of clients at this point, yes, trauma can be a part of their story. Certainly, we see that a lot. I also get a couple of other things that are very common trends amongst a very high population of our clients. One is performance-based validation. Okay, so they are someone whose worth is based on what I can do, not on who I am. So they could look back at childhood and be like, look at, this is the first generation where we're even caring about emotional presence and, fathers being emotionally there for their children. I mean, most generations past, that just isn't even what was the norm. And children needed those things, but good enough parents, right? Oftentimes, yeah, they did not provide the emotional intelligence, the emotional nurturing that children needed. What I see in often our clients is that they were expected, they got more love when they performed, right? When they were good. when they were not good, they got less love. So these guys learned how to go and be really successful by society's standards, whatever that looks like, whether that's physical appearance, whether that's money, whether that's status, whether that's jobs, but they don't actually know that they are worthy of love just as they are, just for existing. So that's one that I see pretty consistent through almost all of our client base. Another one that's kind of an insidious one is enmeshment with a mother. So attachment plays a really huge role in sexual development and relational and intimate development. The enmeshment with a mother, most of the time our clients coming in are not, they haven't identified that. They'll say, my child was pretty good, and my dad worked a lot and he was gone, and you know what, he was kind of strict, or he was rough on us. And I'm always like, well, tell me about your mom. Could you share with me about your mom? Oh, she was great. Really, what that means is that the mother's needs took priority over the children's needs. And in some ways, either the children or one child was a sort of pseudo partner to them, that they needed to make sure mom was happy, that they needed to make sure that mom's emotional needs were met, that mom is fragile, like don't rock the boat. So they learned, I'm not going to get my needs met. My needs don't matter. No one's coming to meet my needs. So they stopped learning. They don't know how to identify what their emotions are. They don't know how to identify what they need. And therefore, they don't know how to ask somebody to meet that need. So they just learn, I have to meet my needs myself, which oftentimes is this, it's intimacy and sex split off somewhere in that dynamic, in their attachment. And the two things don't come together. So Dr. Ken Adams has a ton of really great information, resources on enmeshment. John Taylor as well. We have webinars, up the yin yang on this topic. So I would say in terms of resources, again, check out our books, check out our webinars, check out our podcasts, but it does not have to be this giant war story. And I have a lot of guys coming in that are like, what is so wrong with me? Like my childhood was fine. I had my basic needs met. I had fun. I had friends. Why am I so wounded? And when you really get down to the base of it, trauma or no trauma, it's, did I learn that I have value and worth, and my needs matter, and someone's going to meet those needs, and I know how to identify them and ask for those to be met. Like if you really boil it down, that's pretty consistent across the board, which wreaks havoc in relationships, because you're in a relationship with someone that doesn't know how they feel. They don't know what they need, and they don't ever ask you for what they need. They just get their needs met in a dark compartment over here. And now I feel completely abandoned. It feels like it's all there in the beginning and then it's gone. What is going on? So I hope that's helpful, but it is some of the trends we see most commonly in the residential treatment program.
So really briefly, Troy Love talks often about attachment wounds, and that's, abandonment, neglect, rejection. Like he's got the whole list. He talks about those on our webinars. I've been throwing all kinds of stuff in the chat, so follow those links and see things.
Troy's stuff is great.
It is, because like everybody has wounds. It's just what level we take them to. I was also thinking while Erin was talking, Dr. Enid Gray did a podcast with Dr. Rob on neglect, the silent abuser. And this is not Child Protective Services neglect. Right. This is like, oh, our family had to look perfect to the outside world, and, or two very busy working parents, or, I mean,
or just, we don't talk about anything.
Yeah.
How was
for
the
whatever
weather?
Reason. Yes, exactly. So there's lots of reasons and stuff, and not everybody who was sexually abused is a sex addict. So it isn't, I was a sexually abused child and therefore I'm a sex addict. So there's underlying stuff. Unpacking that after you stop the problematic behavior is what, is really healing, for the longer haul. But that's the stuff for deeper work, not stop the problematic behavior first. If you start poking around in all of this stuff, guess what? But I was laughing because I was thinking, oh, how many people do we have that come to treatment going, I had no trauma, and you start looking at things, and everybody's, siblings can have the same experience virtually, and one of them, is an addict and one of them isn't. And so it's how we, there's so much that goes into it. It's complex, which is why Erin was talking at the top of the hour about like why having somebody who's actually qualified to do this work matters.
Yeah. Well, and I think Gabor Mate said, it's not about what happened to you, it's about what happened inside of you.
Yes.
And so how we interpret the things that are in our, awareness, and how we're geared to, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, some fighters will they'll look like the most resilient people in the world because they're just like, I'm not going down with this. So it really depends on our own kind of trauma blueprint, who we are, temperament, nature, nurture, all of it.
And recovery is learning to show up differently. So,
Mhm.
okay, betrayer here. Are there signs in a relationship that we are ready to maybe start couples work, as each of us has been doing individual work as the betrayer and betrayed partner, mostly with paid and free SI resources such as work groups, drop-in groups, support groups, etc.
Good. Well, so this brings up a great point, which is that we don't always recommend people go directly into couples work right after discovery day, right? We want to see some individual work to get a little, well, first of all, for the addict to get some level of recovery so that it's not every week is a new, D-Day, and the partner's in here trying to do everything they can. And for the partner to get a little bit of healing, at least starting to get some regulation, some ability to, some community, some ability to say, okay, I'm on solid ground now, because otherwise couples work can be damaging. It can make it worse. And it also can just be a repeat or regurgitation of the same kind of content every week. So I appreciate this question a lot. I would say that, yeah, when you both have the ability, I think, to say, I know what my work is. I know what the path is for my own individual healing. I have some good internal and external boundaries. So for both parties, like we want to work towards moving toward one another in a safe way, because we've established that we can be safe using our tools outside of that realm. So that would be, we're not in crazy screaming matches every day. We are getting to the place where we're not necessarily in the what's going to happen, I'm triggered constantly. We have done enough work where we can now communicate, and we want the help of a couples therapist to help us go deeper, to help us get to some of that deeper hurt, to help us move forward in a way that is going to enrich our relationship and move us forward. So if you're still at the place where it's like, I cannot look at you, or I want to, throw you off a cliff, you're not quite there yet. And there's no judgment or shame around feeling that way. It just means that doing some of the work for the addict helps to reduce shame, helps to rise up a level of accountability, helps to give some emotional awareness. So there is just more productivity that actually can happen in couples therapy. Otherwise, it just kind of feels like both parties end up walking away feeling like, well, what the hell was the point in that? Like, we could have done that in our kitchen table because we just wanted to get in there and have a referee, essentially. But that really established recovery is important, because you do not want to spend money on a couples therapist and have one lying the whole way through. You want to have some action-based steps in place and being able to witness those, to feel like couples therapy is a good use of time and a good productive use forward.
And in addition to that, the client for the couples therapy is the coupleship. It's neither of you. So keeping that in mind, the individual therapist can help with it. Now, there are some individual therapists who do conjoint couples therapy. So your individual therapist can work with the two of you, even on an intermittent basis, and then they would know you and support you, in that work. So that can be a really meaningful way to approach it too. So there's lots of ways to do this. Finding what works best for you is obviously optimal. So we are 1.5 years from D-Day, and my PA husband is sober, but he is still behaving in addict ways like blame shifting, defensiveness, which is very hurtful and makes me distance from him. How should I respond to this in the moment, and when does it end? We're currently in therapeutic in-home separation and things aren't getting better. He apologizes after the damage is already done. Hmm.
Well, so kind of how I mentioned earlier, the way I would probably handle it in the moment is, hey, I don't like the way we're communicating right now. You know, the way that you're showing up is not making me feel really safe right now. I want to take a time out. And what you're noticing is he apologizes after the damage is already done, which to me is saying that he's probably in a dysregulated state, coming from shame still, or coming from protection of his own ego, or focusing on the content, not able yet to focus on your emotions. Like there's some things that they have to learn over time here, but slowing it down, right? And that not every conversation needs to happen right now. That if you're noticing that this is the way that my partner's showing up, I know what this looks like, feels like, and I don't want to be a part of it, then just lovingly say, let's try again tomorrow. You know, I also have couples that for a period of time may use like a couples journal. I had one on my desk, it's clearly not sitting here. Where they talk about the deeper things in a written form back and forth. So it goes like nightstand to nightstand. And what's good about that is it does slow it down. So I'm going to write in it when I want to express myself. I want to share gratitude. I want to share a deeper feeling I'm having. And I would otherwise feel very vulnerable saying that in front of my partner, right? They get a chance to read it when they're in a good place, respond when they're in a good place or when they want to respond, and put it back the other way. So it's another communication tool that just helps to slow things down. But what I would say is just my internal boundary with that behavior would be, I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm not going to scream and yell at you. My external boundary would be, if you're showing up in this way, I'm going to take a break. It's not that I don't love you, that I don't care about you. It's just that this trap we fall into never ends well. So I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to go into my room and, focus on self-care. And let's try this conversation again tomorrow. I think that our triggers, our hurt, all of that stuff is coming now, and I don't want to make this worse. Right. So it's just, I just walk away from it, and say, well, let's do this another time. Because clearly there is a point where his prefrontal cortex comes back online and he feels badly about the way he was behaving, but he has not yet put enough space between some kind of trigger for him and an immediate reaction, which he then later regrets. So it tells me that the cycle is too wound up, that it needs to slow down.
I just put the boundaries for betrayed partners, trust and connection. That starts May 27th. I put that in the chat. That might be useful for you. I'm really curious what he is doing for his sobriety, because this feels like somebody who's checking a couple boxes. You're in-home separation and it's a year and a half. And I'm like, oh, like I am wondering what he is doing on a daily basis to do recovery work so that he can do things differently. Out of the doghouse would be a really good work group for him to consider, because that is how we learn to build trust. I love what Erin was saying. I said to somebody, one of the webinar hosts the other day, I was like, I think we say on almost every webinar, slow everything down. As addicts, we are really quick to do the reactive thing, and partners can get into that too. And it doesn't serve, like then we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So slowing it down and going, is what I'm about to say going to help the situation? Or is this going to repeat a same pattern that has not really worked well, And maybe I should call my sponsor. Maybe I should go for a little walk before we have this conversation, whatever, but I called Debbie, I told Debbie McCrae, I'm going to get her a crown that says Queen of Healthy Boundaries. And she is so good at that 4-part talking boundary. And I would invite you to consider participating with her in that boundary work group. I think you would find that really helpful for you to have a voice in how you show up for you, in this situation. Okay. I already answered this one in the chat. So I've been having a hard time finding 12-step programs, but have had it recommended from multiple sources. How do I go about finding them? Guess what? We have a webinar. I know you're going to be shocked, but we did a webinar on 2/7 of 24 about navigating the 12 steps. And with alcohol, it's easy. You go to AA, but with the S groups, there's a whole bunch of them, and so having the opportunity to watch that webinar and find out what a healthy meeting is. And I also put the link, we have the 12 steps listed on our website, and you can go to their individual homepages and find out some local meetings, hopefully, but also the virtual meetings. All of the programs have virtual meetings as part of that. So, and there, I'm on the board of directors for SCA, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. It's just one of the 12 steps. It's just one. So, pick, but, they are talking about, they started a YouTube channel. Great. They have virtual meetings. They have international meetings. I mean, there's stuff, and that's true of all the S groups. So, there's PAA, SPAA. Check them out. I think you'll find that. I think you'll find both of those helpful, both the webinar on how to navigate it, but also here's where they are listed. You don't have to do it alone. We've got a whole bunch of resources for you.
Yeah.
Okay. I am the betrayed partner. D-Day was last June. My spouse has a CSAT and is in SAA for about a month consistently now. I am away on a business trip. A hard boundary was crossed and he relapsed this past weekend. I just learned this year about my boundaries, but now I'm unsure about consequences. Any advice on how to respond to a relapse?
Well, I think it depends on what the relapse is, and also depends on what your boundaries are, right? So somebody may say, when I'm really working out my boundaries, I want to know, what are non-negotiables? Like, what are for me bottom lines that if this line is crossed, unfortunately, I have to exit this relationship, like permanently. I'm done. I'm not going to continue. And not as a threat, right? Not like, if you do this again, I'm out of here. That's an ultimatum. A boundary is saying, I know within myself, if these non-negotiables are crossed, that I no longer in integrity can stay in this relationship in a healthy way, right? So what is the non-negotiables? And then what are variations therein, right? So, you wouldn't want to say, well, if you ever so much as look the other way, I'm divorcing you, right? Like I always say the punishment and the crime should fit, but they should be in alignment with what you truly want, need, and feel. So I don't know what the boundary was that was crossed. But I would say a good place to start for people that don't really know what the consequences are of their boundaries can say, if this boundary is crossed, I need you to leave the house, or I'm going to leave the house. And within 24 hours, I'd like to sit down with a therapist and talk about what happened. And it gives you time and space to say, what do I actually want here? I may not. And because once you really set a boundary with a consequence, you probably should walk that thing all the way out, right? But if you're not sure, you can always say, my boundary is 24 hours of separation. And at the end of that 24 hours, we'll come back together and I'm going to let you know what I'd like to do. Right. So, I mean, people have done things such as 24 hours out of the house, sleeping in a different room, a week apart. Others have said, we're not speaking until we're in our next therapy session. Some do go to the point of, yeah, if you cross the non-negotiable boundary, and that is coupled with you not doing a bunch of things that I really know you could have been doing to prevent this from happening, then it's over. I mean, it depends on kind of the history in the relationship, the amount of recovery work going on, and really what's in alignment with you around what you would like. And boundaries really should not require that the other person does anything. Meaning, if I'm setting a consequence, yes, I'm maybe asking someone else to do something, but if they're not willing, I'll leave. That the consequence is separation. If you refuse to leave, I'm heading out. I am getting safe from you. That is something I need and I'm willing to act on.
Because we can't control anybody else. I mean, I can ask you to leave, but if you don't leave, like, I have to take ownership of, like, I need the separation. So I'm really curious about this one again, Erin. So I'm thinking, like, what I hear, this is what the story I'm telling myself, is that this person hasn't internalized their recovery. Like, they might have been checking off boxes. They haven't done enough yet to have a solid foundation of sobriety, and clearly, they acted out. Okay. So what have they learned? And is this an opportunity? I mean, I look at this is an opportunity to go, wow, what I was doing was not enough. And what am I going to choose to do differently? That could be really telling as you're considering, what action you want to take. And like Erin said, you got to walk it out. But Dr. Rob always says, don't make a consequence if you're not willing to follow through, because we as addicts will go, oh, this is
You're
a
not really
semi-permeable
gonna,
thing.
yeah,
Exactly. I can manipulate you to get what I really want. And
yeah.
it doesn't really mean so find your truth, and again, those boundaries work groups are super helpful for identifying not just what the boundary is, but what the planned consequence. And it can be, I'm going to take 24 hours and decide, what I need. And that's still a stated consequence. So that, that is helpful. But I
Yeah.
would be really interested to know what he's chosen to do to, after this incident that was clearly a problem for him and you, what is he choosing to do to make sure that he's engaging in a recovery plan that levels up so that he can help prevent that, in the future.
Yeah. And I mean, because if you're looking at this, D-Day was last June. So coming up on a
Hmm.
year, but he's been in SAA for about a month. So,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of time in there where he wasn't truly doing, some steps. So I'm not surprised that you left on a business trip and, you know, and if mom's not around, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
that's an external look that's like, I need you to babysit me to be good. And that's not real recovery.
And that's not recovery. That is like checking off boxes, and it's never going to be secure. And here's the other really sad problem with that is, like, one of the number one problems with addiction is if we get resentful, we'll act out, and it's up to us to learn to manage that. But if you're in a parental mode of, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just stating this, but if it's like, well, I'm only doing this so I'm a good boy or whatever,
Yeah.
then it's like, well, I don't want to do this or whatever. And look, the cat's away, the mouse will play kind of thing.
Yeah.
Look what happens, and
No, and I'm
so
proud of you for going on a business trip because
yes, I am
some will say,
too.
well, I'm
Yeah,
just never leaving again because if I leave,
yeah,
he's gonna, and I'm like, what will be, will be. You
exactly.
have to keep living life.
And this is such, I mean, I know this sucks. And this is an opportunity of, like, what he was doing wasn't enough. And so for you, a healthy boundary can be about, in order to build trust, I need to see that you're really engaging in more. If he hasn't already done so, which I doubt he has, but, we have an online work group. I've already put the link in, sex addiction 101 would be a really good one, or porn addiction if it's all been online. But that, like, clearly, he's not into, doghouse and building trust. He needs the foundational components, and if he's going to SAA, I don't know how many times a week, but 90 meetings in 90 days would be a reasonable thing with the recent slip. I mean, this is an issue. And if he gets the message of, like, wow, this really is a problem, you know, that could be a turning point for him in order to take ownership of his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question. Oh, and it'll be our last. What is a reasonable expectation around timing for an addict to conquer their intimacy anorexia? 1 year, 10 years, never? How do you even teach someone how to know, or how to want to know their spouse and be known by their spouse? I'm starting to wonder if it's something someone either just wants for themselves or they don't. Betrayed partner here, and wondering if I'll ever have the experience of feeling seen, heard, known by him, or it's pointless. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is. And we see it a lot because what's underneath all of this is typically, yes, an intimacy disorder, but really that's just a fancy way of saying attachment issues. So we typically, sometimes we see anxiously attached addicts, sometimes it's avoidant. They look more avoidant, let's put it that way, in terms of intimacy. And to answer your question, there is hope. It takes work. This is why I said, like, a lot of people do come to residential treatment because we're overturning. First, it's like the defenses, like you have to, and that in itself takes a week in treatment. I'm always say by the end of the first week, wow, we're starting to see you in there. But there's defenses. They learn this stuff in childhood. They're not safe, and no one's going to meet my needs. And they have, it's just kind of become this robotic way of being. and operating in the world. They don't even know another way. And so really overturning that, and it takes work. I think it takes experiential work. It takes somatic work. It takes really, and you have to want that too. And if they don't even know what it feels like, it's hard to even say that I want something. So there is, trust me, I have seen some men that have literally never experienced intimacy, not only experience intimacy, but be able to take that home and have it in their partnerships. And we hear from those couples that their marriage is better now than it ever has been. So yes, there is absolutely hope. And it's not about a time frame. Is it year 1? Is it year 10? It's what's the quality of being done in that time frame. And I do think as partners too, there are ways in which we can interact as a couple that don't promote the worst sides of their attachment, if that makes sense. So for me, married to an avoidant, okay, I know that if I'm in mom mode, I'm instantly going to put him into a place of avoidance, because with the mother stuff, that's just the way it's going to go. If I am giving enough space for him to explore his own needs, wants, desires, being a safe place for those things to come to, I'm more likely that is going to be shared with me. And I don't put pressure on it every day either, right? And we create scheduled times, experiences where those things can feel safe and begin to explore and blossom, but it can't be drug out, because it just puts the walls back up. But like I said, residential treatment has been a really profound way to see this happen for men who have never experienced it before, who would call themselves intimacy anorexic. Yeah, but they're not. They just never learned how to do it. No one showed them. They never felt safe. Vulnerability is a mystery, and they're very well defended, but it is possible. Absolutely.
Okay, we are past out of time. I've been typing away frantically. Come back. Email us, come back. We're here. We want to help. So, okay. Thanks, Erin. It was great to see you.
Yes.
And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds
All right.
good. Have a
I'll see you
great
on
week,
Peer Group
everyone.
tomorrow. All right. Bye.
Yes.